Hi everyone, it's Rob Watson, the module leader for TECH2503 Community Media Production, and this is a short video overview of what we'll be covering in the 7th lecture for the module. And the topic this week is the social construction of poverty. And what I want to do within this session is just an overview and some pointers in the direction of other reading and other ideas about the way that social marginalisation is regarded as a phenomena which is either, on the one hand, the result of personal failings, or on the other hand, is regarded as the outcome of structural inequalities in society. And what I want to think about, or raise some questions about, is how community media deals with that and supports it. Or supports people who are caught up in the, if you like, the poverty trap, and how they are maybe represented in mainstream media, and how poverty is covered as an issue in some kind of sociological thinking. So what we'll look at is we're going to quickly review. In week 5, we were looking at sustainability within Leicester and some of the challenges that faces Leicester in terms of social change. And we looked at some foundational principles, which I've kind of mapped out. We kind of listed them, but I've mapped them out as a set of diagrams. So we kind of think of them as a kind of process. And we can use these ideas, we can use the concepts that are associated with them as a kind of check sheet for our activities to look at the way that community media might engage as a way of a platform for community development, and a tool or a technique within kind of community development operations. So these are kind of the foundational principles, things like sustainability, the things that we've covered, equitableness, kind of design approaches to sustainability. Things like value and local identities and local knowledge, very important for a sustainable developmental approach to community practice, and really asking the question why community media isn't really embedded in this more generally. So one of the big issues that we want to explore in future weeks is the idea of participation. It occupies a central role in thinking about community media. It has a sense of purpose in itself. It's supposed to be good as an activity, and the more meaningful the participation is, the better that communities can become, or the more likely that communities will be self-actualized and realize their own sense of development. So we'll try and put this in a kind of framework which will help us to map out some of the thinking about the concepts that we've looked at over the previous weeks, and kind of what the kind of challenges might be in terms of how we can account for what we do as community media advocates and community media supporters. So what we'll look at in a bit more detail in this lecture is some of the challenges, and one of the big challenges in Leicester, and has been for a long time, but has kind of returned to be a significant issue again, is the issue of poverty and the issue of child poverty. So we'll look at different ways that poverty is thought about, either from the kind of the approach which looks at poverty as a kind of a line below which people drop, and therefore are socially excluded and don't play a full role in society. And we'll also look at the idea of kind of the kind of idea of the poverty trap, where people get locked into a cycle of generations upon generations of people with low expectations, low aspirations, low educational capability, and we will discuss how maybe these things can be influenced or turned around, and whose responsibility it is for that, what the role of government is, what the role is of communities, what the role is of the economy, in order to be able to manage that process. But we'll also look at the idea of the way that poor people are represented, and how films tend to depict people in poverty, and TV programs like Benefit Street, how they depict people who are the subjects of inequality. So we'll look at these, and we'll ask some questions about the kind of framework around which community media offers some kind of guidance or kind of way forward in thinking about poverty. And even actually, does community media do that? Does community media represent people who are marginalised and on the social edges to have a voice within their communities about their experience? Just because you're poor doesn't mean to say that you're not thoughtful or articulate about the situation that you're in, which might be beyond your own doing and means of emerging from it and dealing with. So the whole focus is to look at different aspects of social exclusion and to look at the kind of way that social inequalities are sometimes structured within our politics and the policy making, and how whole communities and whole areas, urban areas or rural areas, are maybe affected by things that are not of their own making, but are the consequence of decisions that were taken elsewhere and in a former time and by other people. And these are the communities that are picking up the pieces. So we'll look at this as a kind of a broad overview. We've got some clips to watch, and we've got some images and diagrams built into the notes, which I've posted the notes up onto the DMU Commons wiki on the TECH2503 page. There's quite a bit of reading that I've posted. You don't have to read it all, but it might be worth having a look at. I've put some links up for some chapters about the issues of inequality, and there's a couple of links about kind of segregation in British cities and the kind of tie-in with inequality based around issues to do with ethnicity, the idea of the kind of the post-industrial landscape of the United Kingdom as an example, and the transformation of Leicester from a monocultural space to a multicultural space, but one which is very poor in comparison to other parts of the country. And I've also put some suggestions for some viewing. There's Cathy Come Home, which is available via the Boxer Broadcasts, the online sites that you can watch videos and programmes and films. And then there's a couple of programmes that I've put on links for, again via the Boxer Broadcasts, which are about the impact that the film Cathy Come Home had in the 1960s and what it leads on to now, and kind of where we are now in the debate about people who are affected by inequality. So sorry, I've spoken a lot. I've talked more than I needed to. So I will see you at the lecture on Thursday.